was in elementary school, and I would bring home straight A's on my report card, every card marking of every year. And I'd run to my mom and I'd say, Mom, what am I gonna get special for getting straight A's on my report card again? And my mom would look at me, every report card of every year, and she'd say, nothing. But Mom, I just got straight A's on my report card again. And my mom, I promise you, would look at me every card marking of every year, and she would say absolutely nothing. And it was because my mom discovered that getting straight A's in that particular school was not a problem for me. She knew and she discovered that I wasn't working hard to get all A's at that particular school, that it was a piece of cake. And so my mom wouldn't even let me boast about my straight A's. When all the other little kids were bringing their report cards to church and people were giving them money for their great report cards, my mom wouldn't even let me show mine off. And so I couldn't understand, but Mom, I just got straight A's on my report card again. But my mother realized that those straight A's weren't my best. It was just that I happened to be at a school that did not know how to get the best out of me. And so their excellent was really my average. And so while I was getting straight A's every card marking of every year, it wasn't because I was so amazing and so outstanding. It was because the school I was in did not know how to pull the best out of me. And so my mom made me switch schools. And in the 4th grade, I got the revelation of a lifetime. My mom transferred me to the Alonzo Bates Academy School for the Gifted and Talented. And my 4th grade teacher was Mrs. Judy McSorley. And Judy McSorley gave me the first F I had ever gotten in my life. Now, I love Miss McSorley, but I didn't like her very much. Here I am. I had been accustomed to straight A's up until the 4th grade. And all of a sudden, I changed schools, and now I get my very first F. But I was doing the same thing that I was doing in my last school. I was exerting the same amount of energy. But while I was getting an A at the last school, I got an F at the new school. Why? Because the standard was different. Mrs. McSorley explained to me that I was getting an F, not because I performed less than my peers, but because I performed less than my best. So Miss McSorley, she explained to me how my grade was not based on how I performed in the rest of the class, but it was based on my own capacity. And because I had the capacity to do more and did not do more, instead of getting the A's I was accustomed to, I got the F I deserved. It was problematic for me. Mrs. McSorley gave me my first F, and she gave me one on more than one occasion. But my question for each of you this morning is, what grade are you carrying? Now, I'm not talking about your academic grades, but I want to know, how would you grade your giving, your sharing, your serving, your generosity? I wonder how many of us have given ourselves A's when God would give us an F.
Come on, give a round of applause as he comes at this time. Receive Minister Jeffrey Allen Murdock Jr. Come on, give it up.
Who is moving on the waters? who is holding up the moon, and who is peeling back the darkness with the burning light of noon, and who is standing on the mountain, and who is on the earth below, and who is bigger than the heaven, and the lover of my soul, Creator God,
He is Yahweh.
the great I am.
He is Yahweh. The Lord of all, He is Yahweh.
Yeah, He's the King of all, Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh, yeah. You are my shield. You are my God. You are my tower in my weakest hour. You are my peace. Oh, you are my God. Yeah, you're the King of Yahweh. You are my song. Oh,
And when Paul asks them to participate in the grace of giving, he's inviting them to participate in a good deed or a kind favor, just like Jesus participated in a good deed or kind favor to us. All right, let me say it differently. Paul says this is not a requirement or a commandment, but I want you to share in this grace of giving. Paul says, I want you to do it not because you have to, but because you want to. See, that's the difference between a rule and grace. See, when we do things because we have to, we do it because it's a requirement, it's a commandment. But when we do things because we want to, it's a demonstration of grace or charis. In other words, when Jesus left heaven to come to earth, it wasn't because he had to, it was because he wanted to. When Jesus walked the dusty streets, it wasn't because he had to, it was because he wanted to. When Jesus went to the cross to die for your sin, it wasn't because he had to, it was because he wanted to. When he went down into the grave and rose with all power in his hands, it wasn't because he had to, it was because he wanted to. And when he decided to wake you up this morning, it wasn't because he had to, it was because he wanted to. It was because of God's grace, his charis. So when Paul invites us to give, he's not inviting us to give as a requirement, but he's asking us to give because we want to, not because we have to.
Rejoice, for you made it through. And you know what? If you won't bless him, when I think about the goodness of Jesus and all that he's done for me, my soul cries out, hallelujah. I give you the praise. I give you the glory. Come on, your trauma should have taken you out. You could have been dead, sleeping in your grave, but God brought you out. He brought you through. He brought you over. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Rejoice. If you can't say anything else, say yes, yes. God, we give you glory. We surrender to your praise. Yes. We say yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Give you praise. Give you glory. Give you honor. Say yes, yes. Oh, yes. Say yes. Oh, take your
He didn't die and rise from the dead so that we can get an emotional catharsis every Sunday morning. He didn't die and rise up from the dead so that you can brag about how you're a member at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church. That's not why he died. He died for people like that store clerk down in Joplin, Mississippi, Joplin, Missouri, when the tornado was coming through the town. There were 15 people who were locked inside of this beer cooler. And there were 15 people who were hunkered down because they were fearful for their lives. But there were 3 young men who were stuck outside, and they were looking for a place to be safe. And these 3 young men in Joplin, they saw this convenience store on the side of the road, and they ran to the convenience store and knocked on the door, but nobody came to answer. These 3 young men saw the tornado coming, and they knocked on the door, but nobody came to let them in. They saw the tornado getting closer and closer, and these 3 boys knew that their life was over, but they kept knocking on the door. There are 15 people who have found safety and shelter inside the convenience store. But 3 young boys are outside knocking on the door for their lives. But out of nowhere comes this store clerk. And the store clerk decides that while his life is important, it's better to save 3. Paul says, do you realize how passionately generous Jesus has been to you? Have you actually taken a moment to consider just how passionately generous Jesus has been to you? First of all, he woke you up this morning. That's enough right there. But then he put food on your table that you didn't have to beg for. He's keeping you together on the one last nerve you got. He's giving you money to outlast your month, and he's keeping your closet closed long enough so you can get yourself together. Do you realize how passionately generous Jesus has been to you? Do you realize that your insurance approved you for a procedure they should have denied? Do you realize Jesus has pushed your resume to the top of the pile so you could get the interview? And let me not forget that he died for the sin you won't stop committing. Do you realize how passionately generous Jesus is to you?